following episode of the Law Live Audio Wrestling is dedicated to the memory of the legend and pioneer, Sweet Daddy Zeke.
Here we all again. It's time for the show. Time for the show. Time for the show. This is Along with Chris, Tidwell, and little Bradie. It's time. This is the law. This is the law. With Chris, Tidwell, and little Bradie. The law. This time. This is the law.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to What's a Word. They also call it the Law Live Audio Wrestling until we decide we don't want to call it that fucking dumb name anymore. Yeah, I'm cursing right off the hop. I'm opening up the show because this week we are salty. Well, I am anyway, and my co-host, technically the host of this show, probably not as salty as me, but I'm going to try and drag him into the fucking salt mines with me by the time we get this done. If you have kids listening to this episode this week, I would suggest you just switch to one of the other random shows on whatever podcast provider you're listening to. But if you've got balls and you want to get through this one, well, we got a lot of shit to talk about. We're going to talk about simps. We're going to talk about drug addicts. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff inside of the world of combat sports and some sports entertainment. But before I get off on a whole long angry rant, this is the Law Live Audio Wrestling. My name is Little Bradie Whetham, and I would love to introduce to you your host, the host with the most, the man who takes down the post. Yes, this is the notorious TID, Chris Tidwell. Chris, how are you this week?
You know, I am coming in hotter than a Hulk Hogan boo session. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, if you don't like me, I don't care. If you don't like Bradie, I do care. Because that little dude deserves all of the love for putting all of this stuff together, making everything nice and easy for everybody to pay attention, for everybody to play along. It just so happens that the people in the deep end of the sandbox decided to bury themselves like a bunch of cat shit and not get along with anybody. So here we fucking go. You wanted me in the pit, Bradie? I'm in the pit. Let's do this thing. Yeah, you're right. We're going to talk about simps. We're going to talk about drug addicts. We're going to talk about a whole lot of garbage. But you know what we also are going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about the hottest names in female mixed martial arts for the year 2025, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's go. I hope our list is better than Ariel Helwani's top 5 of the year. Because did you see that? Let's segue right off the hop. Did you see Ariel Helwani's top names of 2024? His top 5 names?
No, I did not. Please.
Well, Ilya Tavora didn't make it.
Really?
John Jones was on that list at number 3 when he only fought Stipe Miocic.
Listen.
Ariel Helwani's just out there clickbaiting.
Look me directly in the eye. Look into this camera. Cameraman, zoom in when I tell you this. Everybody get the f*** off of John Jones's dick.
Yep.
All right?
Yep.
Simple as that.
Speaking of simps, yes, well, we're going to talk about Conor McGregor destroying BKFC or potentially destroying BKFC with all of his antics. We're going to talk about some simps in wrestling, and we'll get into detail when we get back from our first break about exactly what that's going to be. And we're also going to talk about what? Some boxing stuff with Steve Swift this week. What do you guys get into?
We get into a whole lot of stuff. We get into the fact that it looks like Devin Haney is back in the pool. Why? He's swimming. It looks like Floyd Mayweather is broke and being sued. What's going on with that? We talk about that stuff. We talk about Canelo Alvarez. Is this the end of the line? Is he ducking people now? Is this what we're doing? Right? And we talk about a whole lot of other fun stuff. It's a great little segment that we like to call the bees of boxing. Or if you don't pay attention to the little parentheses thing there, or little comma, little dashy thing, it just says the BS of boxing. Because that's really what it's all about. Look at me, Bradie. I've got a furrowed brow.
You're fucking pissed.
You got me fired up. I just walked in. You got me all verklempt, as they say.
Verklempt. Wow. I really like that word. Thanks for bringing that back into the vernacular.
That's an RJ word.
Hasn't been heard since the 1800s.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
You know what else?
Well,
Go ahead.
I've got to cut you off. I've got to cut you off.
Please.
I apologize, and I'm gonna fill in the listeners into a little of the reason why you're mad. So the beginning of the show, when we came into our pre-show meeting, I explained to Chris how insane this next month is going to be on the Hub Network, right? Which is where you're probably listening to this. There's a lot of stuff coming on to the Hub Network over the next couple months here. Some big things, and the reason why we're salty is because everyone is so successful, and we're not. No, I'm joking. We have
that's
done
not
it very well.
That's not it. It has nothing to do with the
We've done
success
very
rate.
well.
I wish nothing but the most success for everybody who's busting their ass to do what it is that they love.
Look, I get why when we put out invites to a whole bunch of people, why they're scared to talk to me and you. And at this point, it's fear. I didn't think it was fear at first, but it is now fear because me and you are unpredictable, and I get it. And who am I to be upset with people when they're trying to protect their own image out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't give a fuck about my image. You couldn't give a fuck about your image. We are, depending on who you ask, we're somewhat educated in some of the things that we talk about. And we're going to talk about them the way we would talk about them, even if this fucking camera wasn't on and these microphones weren't on. So
Yeah.
we're just giving you honesty, and I understand why some people are scared of that. So whoever's not a pussy and is still listening to this thing, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about simps in wrestling, which is the weirdest fucking shit ever here on The Law, live audio wrestling, now known as What's a Work.
You've got your sunrise, you caught a prize, you're making your Johnson. Party nights, summer whites, your friends and your Johnson. Rooster tails, water trails, your kids and your Johnson. Saturday nights, distant lights, your girl and your Johnson.
You and your Johnson, a way of life for over 50 years.
Tune into the law for all your combat sports talk.
And this is What's a Work Radio. I am Chris Tidwell. That's Bradie Whetham. And you know what, Bradie? You and I have been around the wrestling business for a minute, right? A cup of coffee, so to speak, as they call it in the business. Have you ever, up until recently, seen so many dudes get so crazy simpy over the women in wrestling the way that they do nowadays? And go ahead, take a second, think about this, because you could go all the way back to like the diva era, and even, you know what I mean? The Trish era of it. But here's why I ask this. Recently, there was, I think it might have been Russo or Coronet or one of the guys out there had brought up a point that really made me start to think about this, is the fact that there's women in the WWE right now. And I'm not talking about their talents, because listen, you and I want to preface all of the things that I'm going to say here. I have never been a fan in the past of women's wrestling. And recently, I have become a fan of some women that wrestle. And here's why. They learned to fucking wrestle. That's why. Instead of just getting by on, their looks, their enhancements, so to speak, right? Because at no time are you going to see a dude doing that.
We can go back to the Jumping Bomb Angels. We can go back,
Sure.
to Alundra Blaze.
Okay.
They've been few and far in between. The Gail Kims over the years, the people like that. Even Trish, Trish really
Right.
did step her game up over the years and became a
Yep.
really good worker and a good hand. But yes, as collectively, as a whole, women's wrestling has been horrible since the mid 80s. Like really bad, hard to watch. Up
Now-
until about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right. But there's been almost like a swap, almost like a hand-to-hand thing here. And the reason I say this is the wrestling has gotten better, but the selling of sex has gotten more as well, because those names that you mentioned, the Alundra Blazes of the world, even Trish and stuff like that, outside of her, like, you know, they would do the bikini shoots for the calendars and stuff like that. But what they wrestled in was actually very modest. If you look at some of the outfits that the girls are wearing nowadays, I'm surprised. There has got to be more glue than stitches holding these things into place.
The most viral video of last year has to be Rhea Ripley giving the stink face. Like, you know what I mean? This girl is literally walking around in Rikishi's gear.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad at it, but I understand what you're saying, where it's gone from the point where they were doing bra and panties matches and doing like actual sexualization skits to now just putting them out there in a G-string taped to their vision. Like Liv Morgan and Rhea were pretty skimpy last night. And
don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted before all of you try to come at me or come at Bradie or anything like that with the whole, oh, you're just a hater. Oh, you just don't like pretty women in skimpy clothes. Bro, I spent more time in strip joints in my day than you can even imagine. I used to work for Hustler frickin' magazine. You think I don't know a thing or two about the female body and appreciate it? Absolutely I do.
Strip club deviant host. Don't make me get rid of another one.
Oh, no, I don't do that anymore. Because I'm much older now. It's one thing to hang out in a strip joint when you're the same age as the strippers. But if I'm going to a strip joint now and I'm the same age as the strippers, brother, there's a problem.
We have alienated so many people with this fucking what. I love it. All right. Yeah. Simps, you fucking little weirdos on Twitter. You weirdos on YouTube that are only watching shorts of a still picture of Liv Morgan. Like literally me and you could have taken that route. We could have taken this entire channel and just instead of talking about wrestling, just put up pictures of Liv Morgan and all that stuff. And I guarantee it gets over. I've watched it happen. I'm watching it currently happen. It gets over. You guys are weird.
You're absolutely weird.
You're fucking weird.
Because you're simping for the wrong things. You're simping for these girls because they're flashing their boobs out or they got their parts hanging out. Their stuff is so short that you can tell what their religion is. You're simping for these girls because of what they're wearing, not because of what they're doing. In the world of professional wrestling, absolutely no male wrestler has the ability to get over with you marks the way that a female wrestler can. At no time is a male wrestler going to sit there and push his titties together and you're going to be like, oh, I got to buy that shirt. But you do it every single time for a female wrestler, no matter how good she is. You do it because you want to imagine yourself with her.
I've seen men simp out for independent men wrestle, like to men in the business. Like if you go to a comment section of like a crossbody pro wrestling match with Playboy John Atlas, you know what I mean, or a Psycho Mike, it's all just like, you know, men simping for Mike's package and such. You know what I'm saying? So like it's the same thing though. It's these horny simps. It doesn't matter if it's a female or male. I know we're using female as the actual topic discussion, but it's simps in general. And like if anyone doesn't know what that term is, because up until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know what the fucking term means. It means desperate loser who spends their whole life wishing they could be with this person when they've never even had a conversation with them. I get it. I fell in love with Kelly Kapowski when I was a kid growing up, Saved by the Bell. You all fell in love with Topanga if you were my age. You know, it happens. But there's a reality that kicks in where you're like, this is not what I think it is. Like, it's great for the spank thing, I guess, if you're growing up as a young male. But when I'm 40 years old, I'm not watching Rhea Ripley on TV and watching her in her stink face outfit being like, oh, my God. That's just not a thing that goes through my fucking head. I'm watching the work rate. Now, does that make me a little limp-wristed? Maybe, I guess, in some of your fucking opinions, but I'd rather have a limp wrist than a really solid wrist from touching myself from looking at pictures of Liv Morgan all day.
I love that you called her Rhea Ripley.
Did I?
That's amazing. Yep. Well, I mean, listen, here's the thing. And I'll even second that motion. Rhea Ripley, as far as what they're selling, as far as the image that the WWE is selling of the female wrestler, Rhea Ripley is not at the top of that list as far as like the simpy beauty factor. That's your Tiffany Strattons. That's your Liv Morgans. That's your Mariah May for AEW, right? You know what I mean? That's that. It's that stereotypical blonde wavy hair, fake boobs, right? Awful eyelashes, weird tan. Rhea doesn't fit any of that stuff. But Rhea, in my opinion, is one of the sexiest women that they've got on that roster. And you know why? For me, I'll tell you why. It's not because of what she wears. It's not the leather stuff. That's cool and everything like that. But it's the attitude of the way that she works. She's made herself go head and shoulders above the rest of them because of her work. And that's why I would simp out for somebody like a Rhea Ripley, because I want to see her work rate. I want to see her out there wrestling and do what she does best, not just sitting there in leather lingerie.
Technically, you wouldn't be simping then. You would just be a fan of somebody's work.
Well, fuck me then, huh?
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, what you just
100%.
said is the difference between that term simping and being a fan of someone. If you think a woman is pretty, there's no problems with being like, fuck, I want to collect everything I can of this beautiful woman. She's a beautiful woman. But the second that look at, motherfuckers used to simp out for Sunny so hard back in the day that in AOL, when it launched its free disc service, the #1 downloaded picture multimedia of all of the internet at one point was pictures of Sunny. Look what happens. If you simped out your whole life for Sunny, guess what you're simping for now? Fucking degenerate.
Yeah.
Don't fall in love with the image. Fall in love with the work.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. It's okay to be a simp. Everybody, the world needs ditch diggers, but you're simping for the wrong reasons, boys and girls. All right. Because you can say to yourself that whole line that you just said, oh, I'm simping for this person because I want to collect, I want to be a fan and I want to collect all of their stuff. I want every shirt that was ever made. Okay. When those shirts turn into sea rags, all right, bro, that's a different story. Ain't nobody buying a Randy Orton fucking shirt so that they can whack it in it. Okay. But I'm telling you, that's happening with a Tiffany Stratton shirt for sure. It's happening.
Tell people my secrets.
Well, that's why I said Randy Orton.
Oh,
sorry.
Not Randy.
What I meant to say was
Kofi
Kofi
to Randy.
Absolutely.
I jerk off on Randy shirts every time he leaves one at my house.
So how do we get ahead of this? How do we move beyond that? Huh? I don't think you do. I don't think you do, because the world of wrestling is full of enough degenerates that this is going to continue to happen. Eventually, some of those weirdos are going to get podcasts and start talking about stuff that they know nothing about. Oh, that would be the best. That would just a straight up simp podcast.
They already have one of those.
Oh yeah, it's called Draw Straws.
Oh, no, it's not. It's the best show ever. Anyway, we're going to take a break, guys. And when we get back, Chris, what do you want to talk about?
We're going to talk about some Conor McGregor, because we're going to bookend all of this stuff so amazingly. It's going to be the best bookending you've ever had. It's so amazing. Listen.
That's actually pretty good, man.
It's not bad, huh?
Can you do that one more time, please?
Nope. You're going to have to rewind, suckers. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk some BKFC and why is it and how is it that Conor McGregor, in his twisted little mind, is going to destroy the greatest thing since the UFC came into mixed martial arts. I'm Chris. He's Bradie. What's a work?
Available now wherever dummies buy the toys. Swing super kick, man. Available now wherever dummies buy the toys. Swing super kick, man. Welcome back to the law. The fellas continue to ask, what's the work, what's the work, what's the work, what's the work? And now back to the show.
Welcome back to What's a Work, formerly known as the Law Live Audio Wrestling. Hey, Chris, we just got our paperwork in. Technically, our company is officially It's all good to go, and we're going to switch the name because that's what we do. And speaking of switching names, if Conor McGregor doesn't slow down, the BKFC is definitely going to have to switch their name because I don't know what the fuck this guy's doing, but he is definitely bringing the company down since he's been around. What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor and the BKFC? Do you think he helps it, or do you think that this is a huge detriment towards the company?
Well, everybody kind of thought that when he came into this, he was going to be, oh my God, Conor McGregor. That's the kind of name and atmosphere and attitude that BKFC was looking for, right? The Mike Perry thing was one thing, and that's great because he is tailor-made. And you can go back and watch some of our earlier episodes, you know what I mean? And realize when we're talking about Mike Perry, BKFC was built for a guy like Mike Perry. But when Conor McGregor comes over, he's got that thing that nobody else has. He's got that swagger. He's got that name value. He's got that celebrity status that you thought to yourself, holy shit, this is going to be the thing that, boom, zing, takes BKFC off to the moon. Yeah. And for a while there, you're like, yeah, this is happening. And then little tiny things start happening. First of all, with Mike Perry, right? Mike Perry, the face of the company, the guy that we said all of this is perfect for. He goes outside of there and goes into a boxing match with like gigantic gloves against Jake Paul, gets starched, right? And right away, Conor McGregor, not the official owners, none of those guys. Conor McGregor implements himself as a part owner and says, you're fired. Because you didn't do good in that, you're fired. I mean, if that's the mentality, Conor, then you should have been let go from the UFC a while ago. All right? If you lose, you become a loser, is what you're trying to say. And that's not the case. And that was just one little thing. And then it's all these little digs. Then fast forward to the most recent of times, BKFC ends up getting a big deal with DAZN. And DAZN, listen, I love DAZN for the stuff. They finally starting to come around, play enough football. They've got mixed martial arts. They've got a good series of boxing happening right there. It looks like they might be getting their act together a little bit. And so BKFC is like, we need a platform. Let's get on DAZN. It's perfect because we're not going to get on Netflix. Not big enough for that. UFC is going to stalwart all of that stuff. You're not going to get any of those things. DAZN's perfect for you. They have their first event for DAZN, and all of a sudden, Conor's got beef. You should be out there celebrating what it is that you've just accomplished. But what does he do? He sends out a tweet right away, right? Little tough guy sends out a tweet and says, if you don't let our fighters talk after their wins, we're out of here. Like you're going to kibosh the entire DAZN deal over a production value thing. Listen, I think you're looking at the wrong thing, but then it got me thinking, is he really just trying to sabotage BKFC? This might be a wild conspiracy, but it might be a real thing. What do you think?
I'll entertain that enough for you to explain, but realistically, I don't think that's what's happening. I think Conor is under the impression now that he thinks any good tweet that he gets and has any response is the greatest tweet. So if it's something that's negative on the company, he doesn't care. It got more retweets and more acknowledgement and more, like, I think he thinks he's doing them a favor by doing this stuff. Realistically,
it's wild if that's. Yeah, I can understand why you would think that because it's that whole any publicity is good publicity, but that's not the case. I don't think
it's not.
It's not good for them, right?
You know why it's really bad for BKFC, in my opinion, the worst.
Please,
because it's already a borderline sport to begin with. Mm-hmm. Because people are very scared to regulate that kind of fighting. Mm-hmm. It looks so gruesome, even though a lot of BKFC, believe it or not, is safer than mixed martial arts as a whole. It looks a lot more dangerous. There's a lot more hand breaking and there's a lot more cuts on the face. So to the average human, they think that's horrible looking. Like, we can't justify this thing. We don't want to put it on TV. It's not in a position where it can take hits like this. Right. It needs to keep its wheel squeaky clean until it gets to the dance, because it's not at the dance yet. It's about there. It's buying the dress, but it hasn't arrived to the dance yet. And Conor is going to take that limo, that prom limo, and fucking drive it right into the lake before it even gets there.
Could you imagine if this happened during SEG days of the UFC, during Semaphore Entertainment Group, when they're trying to get a deal, and they've got guys like Senator John McCain saying this is human cockfighting, and everybody's trying to shoot this thing down, and they're trying to build this thing up, and they finally get to a point, and all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, hey, Viacom, screw you, we're out of here.
We wouldn't be doing this show because there would be no we'd only be talking about fucking pro wrestling.
It's wild to think that Conor is so, I don't want to say that he's out of touch, but I think that he's too in touch with himself and self-absorbed to understand that this kind of behavior is not good for a brand. Now, maybe this just popped into my head. Maybe Conor's got a little bit more CTE than we think.
I think he's a crackhead.
Really? You don't think that he's more of like an inhaler? An inhaler, or even the straight glass old dickety-doo? No.
I used to think he was just a cokehead, maybe a meth head, some Adderall, a couple Xanaxes. I thought he was maybe like a pharmacy guy. You just take whatever was in the suitcase for the day. Very much like, Hunter S. Thompson type vibe. I don't think it's that. I think this guy's literally smoking fucking rock.
Wow. All right. I mean, he very well, listen, all indications, and this is coming from a person who has done exactly that. Okay. I am no saint when I was younger. I've smoked out of a can.
Yeah, we both have.
Yeah.
So there you go. You find out both of the hosts of the law now are former fucking crackheads when they were kids.
Yeah.
We're really doing some justice to this brand. This episode.
Who cares? Who cares?
Use that, you fucking weirdos. There's your ammo. Now you got the clip. The hosts.
Yeah.
Former crackheads.
Yeah, exactly. Not current, former.
No, I was never a crackhead. I just used to be like, oh, if you got a can, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
I just did anything back when I was a kid.
I picked up drugs off of the ground and took them when I was a kid. Okay.
Holy shit. But you lived in Vegas, so there was a good chance that was actually going to hit right.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. Like, you roll the dice.
Can I ask what it was?
You can.
You going to tell me?
I don't know.
Oh no, it was one. What was the buzz like though? Do you remember the buzz?
It was like a methy kind of buzz, because I said to myself, this bottle that I found, quick side note, and we're going to get past this very quickly. This bottle that I found didn't have like pharmaceutical pills in it. It had like gel caps with stuff stuffed in it. So when you open those things up and you're like, well, let's find out the best way to do these, as you snort it.
Okay, so if you want to hear more of this story and in details, you can follow us over on youtube.com/@TIDTalk, where we do a show with no regards and
none. And it's fun.
No regards.
But the reason that I say this is, don't come at me. Don't slide into the DMs. Don't leave comments like we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah,
we
that's
come
true,
from
though.
a place where this has actually happened to us. We've been part of that life. We know the signs. We see the signs. We're trying to tell you otherwise. All right?
Yeah.
Now.
And Conor, realistically, there's only a couple more years of this. I think this is 2025, and I said it on the show previously. I think this is the year he enters rehab. Whether he puts himself there or his team puts himself there, I think this is the year he cleans the fuck up. And I hope I'm right, because if not, it's probably the year he ODs.
I think you are spot on, Bradie. I think that is exactly what's going to end up happening. And I think that it would be fantastic, not only for him, for his brand, but also for mixed martial arts and even boxing, if he does do exactly that, gets himself cleaned up and gets his life back in order. That would be the most amazing story of his life, coming from absolutely nothing to the absolute top of the mountain, to falling off of a cliff, to building himself back up again. That's the perfect story.
It really
right?
is. And I do think, because if you watch early interviews with Conor, yes, he was always arrogant. Yes, he was always confident in himself. And I do think there was some humbleness to him, and it's just gone now. And it'd be nice to see it come back.
Yeah. I, for one, listen, I enjoy it. The old Conor McGregor antics. You know what I mean? I enjoyed the earlier antics. Don't enjoy the ones lately. I
Ever
don't
since
enjoy
Khabib.
the stories. I don't enjoy the stories of having to go to court over, our charges. I don't enjoy any of that kind of stuff. I don't enjoy the debauchery, the treating. I don't care what kind of agreement you have with your wife and your kids. That's not my business. But when you put it out into the public eye, it becomes everybody's business to talk about.
100%.
All right. So I think that BKFC will do the smart thing, step away from the Conor McGregor business. I think they will step out of it because there's a part of me, like I said before about the sabotaging thing, there's a part of me that believes that the sabotage might happen. And maybe it's just the conspiracy theorist, the pro wrestler in me, where I think that everything is a work, right? But we all went through this with professional wrestling. Remember when Bret Hart was supposed to go take down WCW from the inside out? Could you imagine Dana and Conor have set this whole thing up for Conor to go and take down the one sport that is probably going to give him the most trouble because it's not going to be PFL. It's not going to be GFL. Oh, no way. It's not going to be Bellator. It's not going to be any of those. It's going to be a similar hybrid of what they're doing that'll end up being the new thing. And BKFC is exactly that. So imagine Conor in there, turning the screws deliberately.
I don't think you're right with that one, but time will tell, and it would be interesting to see if you're right. If you are right about that, at this point, we just have to stop the show and start a psychic network because that's almost impossible for you to be able to predict something like that. Now, before we take a quick break, let's preface the business of boxing, the bees of boxing, the boxing of boxing, and the bitches of boxing.
All of them.
All of them. So what do you, Steve, get into this week? And why should we be listening to it?
Well, one of the things that we talked about it's the fact that Floyd Mayweather is broke, apparently. Yeah. We're talking about Money Mayweather. You met him. You got to sit there and, spend some time. Talk about the fact that he's being sued by some of his own workers, apparently. That's a thing. It's an interesting story. We also talk about AJ, Anthony Joshua. What does he really want to do? Right, going forward in 2025. And you'll be surprised. We talk about Canelo Alvarez. Talk about him, and maybe he's at the end of his career because you got people like Terrence Crawford who are trying to call him out. Is he going to take that fight in 2025? And we talk about the fact that Devin Haney is back in the pool, ladies and gentlemen. Devin Haney is in VADA, has signed up for VADA, which is a year-long testing thing. This is all, in my opinion, a ploy to get into that Ryan Garcia rematch. And we're going to talk about that, and it's really good. You obviously give it a listen. Check it out.
All right. But when we get back from the business of boxing, we're going to talk about some amazing ladies in MMA. And there's
what I would say.
I really got to talk about.
What I would say is going to be the top 5 breakout stars of 2025.
All right.
I'm Chris. He's Bradie. Ask yourself the question, what's a work?
Are you in the market for a used vehicle for your family or business? North Toronto Auction hosts public auctions twice a month, and everyone's invited. Hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment are available. Plus, travel trailers, motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and more. View the entire selection at NorthTorontoAuction.com. Bid online or bid in person. Bid on items from government agencies, financial companies, fleet managers, car dealers, and public consigners. For more information, visit us online at NorthTorontoAuction.com.
And we are back. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling, where we always ask the question, what's a work? Because really, that's really what it's about, right? Everybody out here trying to figure out what's a work. And some of the things that we talk about where we try to figure out what's work, it happens to be boxing. And this week, joining us as usual, none other than the pugilist from across the pond, our friend and yours, Steve Swift, to talk a little bit of boxing and what's going on. Steve, how you doing this week, brother?
I'm all right. We have weather. We have rainy weather. We have snow. So we Brits will love that. It's dominating the airwaves as well as Mr. Elon Musk
Do you,
dominating the airwaves.
you not get a lot of snow in
No, we don't get a lot of snow. No, don't be giving me that Canadian snow stuff. I know you get a lot of snow. We don't get a lot of snow. We get sleet.
Okay.
Sleet.
All right.
It's it's aspirational snow, not quite what we want, really.
But you have to remember, Steve, I'm not a Canadian just because I live in Canada. You know what I mean? They do have these things called airplanes where people move. And sometimes even children like myself, if you look at this face, this hasn't always been such a lovely human being, because as a child, I got into a little bit of trouble and couldn't stay in the country that I'm from anymore. Now, when you talk about where I'm from, that happens to be a little town in Las Vegas in the middle of the desert. So I'm all too familiar about how just a little tiny bit of snow can shut down the entire city. It's crazy because it happened not that many years ago in Las Vegas. If you remember, they think they got like half a centimeter of snow and they had to shut down the airport. It was absolutely ridiculous because they're not equipped for it. Nobody is equipped for it, right?
Agree. We're not. We just like talking about it. And I mean, we had some fairly serious flooding here on New Year's Eve. It was, in fact, New Year's Evil, to use a wrestling term. I mean, yes, right, quite near me. Canals burst their banks, etc., etc., and it's been terrible for people. We haven't had that for ages. So yes, it was. It's been something to discuss regularly, and we love discussing the weather. So that's been a bit of something to do.
Well, it seems like this was the first New Year's Eve that I didn't have any flooding. And by flooding, I usually mean alcohol and my liver. And thankfully, because you can't do that at our age anymore, Steve, one thing that you can do is you can celebrate Christmas, you can celebrate New Year's, but then remember what you got to do if you're going to get back into the game of boxing. You're going to have to enter a pool. You're going to have to do a little bit of swimming, as it were. And it looks like Devin Haney, tell me about this. Devin Haney has entered the pool. He's jumping back into the deep end, but he's jumping in with Vada because this is going to be a year-long thing. What do you know about this?
Yes, he is jumping in at the deep end. I mean, this is part of me when I was doing a bit of reading again for this today. When I looked at this story, I looked at it on face value and thought, yeah, that's great. I mean, there are issues with VADA. There are people who say, well, VADA's not very good. And VADA, they don't chase people and all of that. So what VADA will be saying is, well, we have an all-round testing scheme that we'd like people to join up to. And Devin Haney, I think, is the first big name to join up to that. Now, that's great. And on face value, I'm all for that. However, I think this also might have something to do with the Ryan Garcia stuff, because I think he might. I mean, I'm expecting this week for him to come out to say, I joined the all-round VADA testing. Will you do that, Ryan G? And I think we're going to get that. So VADA are probably going to... Sure, I mean, they must be thinking, hooray! Oh, hang on a minute. So they could have a bit of a problem on their hands, but generally, it's a great thing.
Yes, generally, because you've got guys that when you go into that pool with VADA and you're there year round, whether you're inside of a camp, whether you're outside of a camp, the problem I see with VADA is the fact that I don't know if they have enough manpower to take care of the things that they're taking care of. And you know as well as I do, Steve, that just because you are entered into a piss pool, all right, or a blood pool or a hair pool or whatever the hell it is that you got to submit to these people, you know as well as I do, brother, there's ways to get around these things, right? So does Devin Haney go the course? Here's the question I got to ask for you. Does Devin Haney go the course and stay, quote, quote, clean inside of this testing pool? Or is Devin Haney going to become another one of these fighters who is so frustrated with the system, so frustrated with the outcome, that he himself tries to look for a little bit of a shortcut?
I mean, that will be very interesting. First of all, I'm fascinated with your fist pool, blood pool thing. Are these the different parts of the VADA all round testing thing? You can have a fist pool or you have a blood pool. Choose which one. Well, hang on a minute. Just tell me what I have to do. I think it would be very interesting if Devin Haney became a kind of test case and was looking for ways to, well, I'm like a sort of inside, like a sort of spy in the camp who was saying, well, actually, I'm just trying to find the ways to beat this system, and I'm only doing it for your own good. I can't see that. Surely, I mean, he's got to be, now he's doing all of the Ryan Garcia thing. He's got to be sure that there's nothing that's tainted. There is no tainted meat or beverage in my fridge, and I'll be completely clean. And that's hard to, I mean, he's setting himself up, isn't he? Because although VADA are thinking, great, that all year round thing, even when you're off camp, he's got to stay on camp. He's got to walk around. He's got to walk around boxing match ready. I mean, clearly I do that. I mean, obviously you can see, but some people don't. And that's going to be very interesting. He's going to have to say, I'm not quite sure I can have that. Can I just phone VADA and see if I can? Here's a protein bar. Just a minute. Is that VADA? I mean, how do you do that? It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting, because I think that one of the things, and you know as well as I do, that as a fighter inside of camps, you try to look for an edge. So new supplements are coming in. New ideas are coming in. You know what I mean? Your diet comes into effect. Now, we've seen this before in the past with other guys. We've seen where it's like, tainted supplement. Listen, if you don't know at that level of competition, if you don't know every single little thing that's going into your body, brother, have I got a few things to sell to you, because that is just not the case. And we've seen this before. And you mentioned, diet, and you mentioned, let's talk horse meat for a second, because one of the other guys that we're talking about this week is Canelo. And we saw this happen before with Canelo and his, it is the tainted horse meat. I don't know. Okay. Right.
That's great. That's great. I felt he was in the room with me then.
It's spot on, as you say over there, right? Listen, if anything has taught us about boxing, and especially what Canelo Alvarez has taught us about boxing, is that you can move up in weight and you can do whatever you want. But if you're a big enough star, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's not going to affect your brand that much. And further to your point about, you kind of know when, with a supplement, there's the bit of the Ryan Garcia story, isn't there? I can't remember what the guy was called. Was he called Squeezy or Lefty or something like that? He provided me with the supplement. Well, really, I mean, you're looking for someone with doctor in front of their name, not someone who says, I'll meet you in the car park and give you a bag full of supplements. That's not really what you want, is it?
No, it's not the same. It's not the same as going, hey, my friends are getting married, so I'm going to go get myself ordained online as a priest so that I can conduct this wedding. No. I'm sorry. Listen, lefty gunplay is not your source for medical treatments if you're inside of the world of boxing. That's just not going to happen. Here's my question for you, since we're talking about all of this, and now we've wandered over into the Canelo Alvarez field. Is Canelo Alvarez done? And the reason I say this is because obviously age is a factor, right? The ability to get big fights is a factor. His biggest fight right now seems to be something that he may be avoiding in Terrence Crawford. What do you think about all this with Canelo?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, as soon as he did the I don't really want to fight William Skull stuff, and I'll decide who I fight, then that, as I've said before on another podcast, you don't want to fight somebody called Skull, do you? I want to fight somebody called Journeyman. Tony Journeyman. I'll fight him. He's the one. Tony falls down easily. I'll do him. And the thing is that because of that the guilt off the gingerbread with that, and there's no way he wants to fight Bud Crawford. But there comes a point where it's like an exhibition. So really, if we follow this down the line, and he's saying, "I don't want to fight them. I don't want to fight them. I will not fight them. That might be my mandatory, but I don't want it." Then at some point, then all of those bodies are going to say, "Well, then see ya," and he's going to be. It won't affect his brand. That's the thing. That's the thing. The sad thing for boxing, no belt around the waist does not affect your brand. It may be an exhibition, and you think, and for me, I'd be thinking, what's the point of that? These are two going nowhere fighters now, not in the title picture. But really, people will still put their hands in their pockets for that. Yeah, and I mean, it could be. He could be done as a top line fighter, but he's still. Well, he could be done as a top line fighter in the boxing of boxing, but he's not in the business of boxing, or the bullshit of boxing, as you'd like to call it. So he's not. He's not done yet at all.
Yeah, because I saw the switch in your eyes when you said that, because we all know that there's another realm. There's a whole nother world for these guys out there in the world of, quote, quote, influencer boxing, as it were, right? And we've heard this before with Canelo, how, that's the fight that Jake Paul wants because that's the big money fight or whatever. And it looks like his brother is getting, Conor McGregor. It looks like all things are coming up Paul, it seems like, right? I think, and you said this, that it doesn't affect his brand. Has there ever been a time that you can think of in the world of boxing where a belt has affected somebody negatively inside of their brand? Because the belt only affects you positively, but because we have people, Tyson Fury doesn't have a belt. His brand is huge. Canelo has a lot of belts. His brand is huge. Ryan Garcia doesn't have any belts, and his brand is huge as well. So there's guys out there, right?
Yeah, the words in undisputed don't really mean, or that word undisputed doesn't mean much at the moment. Yeah. I take your point, because never have I seen a time where having a belt could stop you getting the match that we all want. So you could say, well, actually, I think we all want to see him go over there and fight that person. Well, we can't now because we need to talk about belts. And who's your mandatory? And by the time your mandatory's done, they're gone. So there is an issue, and there has been for many years, but there certainly is now with influencer boxing as well, and people legitimate boxers dipping their toes into that. So you think, well, it doesn't really matter if you've got a belt. I mean, Usyk has all the belts, but does anybody ever mention it? No, they don't. I mean, it's tossed around the word undisputed, but it doesn't really matter. We know he's the best heavyweight boxer in the world. I know that. I think everybody else knows that. It doesn't really matter how many belts he has. We know that, and that's a difficult situation for boxing. But somebody like Turki Al-Sheikh will love that, because that plays into the hands of the league, and all of that, the boxing league.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I got a question for you, because we're talking about boxers that don't have belts. We're talking about boxers that are huge names. And one of those names that you got to, and we've mentioned it before in the past, and what's he going to be doing? And he shouldn't be doing anything until the new year. Shouldn't even be talking words until the new year. Well, guess what, Steve? It's the new year. And I want to know from you, what the hell does Anthony Joshua really want?
I'm not ready to stop. I'm not ready to stop yet. Are you not? Okay, he was in Nigeria. He went to see the Sultan King of Nigeria, and got some nice pictures. And he wants Tyson Fury for reasons. He wants Tyson Fury. I mean, there's money to be made, but then neither of them need the money, I don't think. I think that, I don't know. I'm lost on this one, because I don't know why you would want to continue. Nobody's coming out and saying, Eddie Hearn's not even saying, you've got to continue, mate. I've seen nothing from him, and he's quite voluble with all the chat. I've not come across him saying that fighter must continue. He must keep fighting. I mean, he said, the match that we're going to make, that we should make, is Tyson Fury versus AJ. Yes. And of course he will do that, roll up and all that. But at no point is anybody saying, my God, you can't retire yet. Quite the opposite. I don't quite know. He's saying, I wasn't right that night. I mean, he's not exactly saying this, but what he's hinting is, I wasn't right that night against Dubois, but I'll be right next time. Will you? Well, I mean, you know, I can say I'm going to run a 4-minute mile tomorrow. I'm not, but I can say last time I tried to run a 4-minute mile and it took me 45 minutes. You know, that was just me on a bad. But this time I'm going to run a 4-minute mile. I'm going to give everybody £100 if I can't. So I'm not making that bet, by the way. No, don't take that bet. I'm not making that bet. But no, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. But yeah, you know, I'm going to be better next time. I don't believe you, son. I really don't, because we've had this psychology stuff, and I don't think that's disappeared, has it?
And is that really the thing, though? Because you know as well as I do, a boxer's job and the promoter's job is to try to get people to watch the event. So the best way for him to say that and to get people to do that is to say those exact things. Listen, let's not talk about the past. Let's talk about the future. And I don't want to talk about the past because I wasn't good in the past, but in the future, I'm going to be better. But what can he really do to convince you of that is a different question, right? Because it's been happening for years with boxers all the time. One guy that's never had to say, I wasn't that good last time and I'm going to be better next time, is a guy who has an undefeated record. If you have an undefeated record, it means one of two things, sometimes even both of those things, to me. Anyways, maybe not to other people, but to me. Number one, it means, because in the world of boxing, that maybe that first half of your record was a little padded. And it means the second thing is that maybe that second half of your resume has been filled with people that you cherry-picked. And I'm talking about Floyd Mayweather. And we've mentioned this before with Floyd, and it's easy to do, because let's talk about Canelo's first loss. Was when he wasn't ready for it. And Floyd knew this, and he picked up on a Canelo and said, no, I got to beat him now, because later on, I'm not going to be able to beat him. And that's exactly what happened. And Floyd went on this run, and he cherry-picked, and he was called Money Mayweather. And he's got this, his whole thing is being, I'm about money. I'm the money weight. I'm not this. It's money, money, money. Money Mayweather. Is Money Mayweather out of money?
Please, Floyd, can I have some more? More? Yeah, that's what the, I don't think that actually happened, but that is essentially what the workers at the Floyd Mayweather Boxing and Fitness organization building are saying. Now, breaking news on this, but I'll tell you what happened. But they've gone on strike. They're not being paid, and they've gone on strike. So they're holding up signs saying money has no money, and also saying that it's some kind of forced labor. So, I mean, that's big stuff to say. Now, what's been said recently is Mayweather's been quiet about this, silent. What's been said recently is that, well, it's a franchise, and so money doesn't have any really, well, it got money involved in it, but it doesn't have any kind of, well, actually, I think they're implying he hasn't. I think they're implying it's just his name and he gets a payment, but actually it's nothing to do with him. But if you put your name on something, then that's going to be a problem, isn't it? Now, he has just dropped $610 million to buy up property. So he's doing that next. That's his property portfolio. That can sometimes leave you a little stretched unless you've got financial partners. I don't know, but I do think that it's not a good look for Mayweather, and it's not good that he's let this story fester for a few days and really not come in and said, come on, I've got loads of cash. We'll get this sorted out. This is nothing to do with me. Obviously, it's got to be. However, as well as that, if you have too many brands and companies and organizations in your portfolio and you're not keeping your eye on them, that's a problem as well. You need somebody at your right hand who is going to say, I'll sort that for you. Don't you worry. If it's got away from him, that's another issue as well. Not good for his brand. And I also would dispute whether he looked good last time out as well, because last time out he replaced the sodding ref. So he didn't look good then either. I'm not a Mayweather fan. I'm not. And although I recognise the skill he's got, but really, you have to also organise your after boxing career. And so few people can do it. And this may be an issue for him. I still think he's got loads of cash, but it's not a good look, particularly when people are accusing you of forced labour or something like that.
it's wild because I mean, this would really be the equivalency, in my opinion, of going after Ronald McDonald for something that you got bad at a McDonald's. Yes, I get it. A bunch of franchises and stuff like that, and you've just sold out your name. You've hoard out your name, so to speak. And that's fine. That's fine. Go right ahead. But know that you have to also have a responsibility because of your brand, because of your name. And the fact that he hasn't come out and said anything yet is more damning, in my opinion. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody's like, oh, we're gonna let this blow over till it goes away, but it doesn't. Those people still need to get their money. They still need to get paid. They still need to eat. It's wacky to think about. Hopefully, Mayweather gets this stuff figured out because listen, his name is synonymous with boxing. His promotion is doing, he's got good fighters under his brand. He needs to be concentrating more on that and less on all of this other stuff that's going on, this auxiliary action going on around him. Steve, we are all out of time once again. This is unbelievable how this happens. Let all of the people know where they can get a hold of you, where they can check you out and stalk you.
Well, yes. Well, first of all, let me say that branding is good, and you can all buy the Steve Swift World Weary Guy thong at the following places. Not really. I see you nodding. I know you've ordered at least 6 dozen of them. I know that XXXXXXXL. I know that, and yeah, indeed, I understand that. I'll be on YouTube as World Weary Guy 1. I'll be on TikTok, the Tick and the Talk, as Steve.Swift 088. Is there a dot there? I think it's just Steve Swift 088. I'm on X as World Weary Guy. I'm on Blue Sky as World Weary Guy. I love to chat. Do come back to me and say, I really dislike what you're doing, Steve, or I really like it. Either way, we'll have a discourse. It'll be nice.
100%. For all of the rest of you, please, you can do that all right here as well on The Law, where we ask the question, what's a work? You can leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, like it, share it, do all of those fun things. Steve, always a pleasure to hang out with you, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the world of boxing. We got some big stuff coming up. There's no doubt about it. And for the rest of you, we're going to be right back to wrap this whole thing up. I told you. It's crazy stuff, man. Every time we sit down and talk with Steve Swift about boxing, it's always a good time. Now, let me ask you this, Bradie, because we talked about this earlier on the show. And if you're watching this segmentally, you can go back and watch some of the other segments or listen to it on all of your podcast providers. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, please do us a solid and hit that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're listening to it. Subscribe so that you can get all of this. Maybe next week you want to hear more angry, stupid stuff from these two idiots. I'm telling you, we might be giving it to you. Now,
the beginning of the show was pretty rough.
It was beautiful. A pearl that belongs in a necklace.
I'm getting a couple phone calls this week again for sure.
Yeah, whatever. Let them call.
Let them call.
Let them send letters.
1-800.
Let them send letters.
Yeah, 1-800. What's a work? Give it a call right now. Leave your message, Chris.
All right.
Women in MMA. Is this the best time for women's MMA ever?
Listen, I think this is the breakout time. Okay, because women in MMA has been around for a long time. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But what we saw, I mean, they've got full women promotions. Yeah. Right. You've got Invicta, which is nothing but women, they had ring boys. Remember?
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I wanted to be a ring boy there.
Well, listen, it was Theodoro, right? Who was a ring boy for them.
Yeah. Such a nice guy.
Fantastic human being. Shout out. But I think that right now with women's MMA, what you saw, let's talk about this. Let's take it back. Talk about the UFC, talk about Dana White and how the UFC was going great and stuff like that. Dana White always said, I'm never going to have women in the UFC. Ever. That's just not going to be a thing.
Literally set it up till a month before he introduced it to the company.
Yeah. And then brought in Ronda Rousey. and a few little smatterings so that she had something to play with, basically, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And he realized the money that can be made off of women's MMA. But women's MMA still at that point hadn't evolved, because you found out later on, once Ronda Rousey got in, there were some people that were able to stay on the same level with her. She got exposed. So the star power of Ronda Rousey was fucking astronomical, but the skill level was not on par with some of the other women out there.
Yeah.
Well,
She was
now
really
this
good at
makes
what she did.
this makes Dana start to think, well, shit, we made this money off of these women. Let's keep this women's division thing going. Well, so much so that they ended up having, like, they got a couple of different weight classes. Now you've got women that are like, young girls and young ladies that are like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. The same way that you have young men who's saying, I'm going to be a mixed martial arts fighter. It's weird nowadays that you can have somebody who was born, right, where there's a 2 in front of the year that they were born. Okay. And they're like, I'm going to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And they can go start training immediately to do so. It never used to be a thing.
Well,
so
we
you've got
to, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we got to see things like when they did bring in the double weight division there, we got to see stars be born. Like we've got to see some girls come up through the rankings and dominate former people like a Ronda or a Cyborg and really say, we're the best. Like we're passing the guard now. And I think we're at a point where the guard's being passed again.
And now we're starting to see some blowouts. We're starting to see some women that are just absolutely murking everybody else out there. Well, I've thrown together 5 names, and these are the ones that I think. These may not be the ones that you think. And if they're not, leave a comment. Let me know. Let Bradie know. Let us all know who it is that you think might be a breakout star in 2025 in the world of mixed martial arts. And I'm not just talking about the UFC. I'm talking about the world of mixed martial arts. So I'm going to give you a name right off the bat here. Miranda Maverick.
Okay.
Yes, UFC fighter, right? 27 years old. Her only losses are against Jasmine Jadavicius or Jazudavicius. Whoo, that was a tough one. It's a long one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jasmine. I'm sorry for butchering your name like that. Aaron Blanchfield and Macy Barber.
Yep.
Remember that last name. Miranda Maverick has never been finished, okay, in any of her fights, right? She's the kind of fighter that stays in the game the entire time. 125-pound girl. That's the division. She's going to be a breakout in 2025. Mark my words. I'll give you another name here. Let's go across over to China to One Fighting Championship and talk about Angela Lee.
Yes, Angela Lee. Yeah.
Angela Lee her only losses came when she decided to fight outside of her weight division. And that happened to be against the champion, Zhang Jingnan, right, who is the current champion. Angela Lee's only losses are to her.
Well, she's a killer though, too, right? She's not. That's not a slump of a human that she's fighting either.
It was only when she decided to fight up out of her weight class that she ended up losing. She sticks in that 115 division. There's not a lot of girls that are going to be able to hang with her at all, right?
So we have somebody dominant in UFC that's going to break out this year. We have someone in ONE FC that's going to break out this year.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple of other names, even in the UFC. And you saw, I mentioned her name when I was talking about Miranda Maverick earlier, and I'm talking about Macy Barber. Yeah. Macy Barber is a girl who is going to do great things. And I'm telling you straight up, I was not a big fan at first because Macy Barber she almost came in with this kind of like this even more pronounced Ronda Rousey attitude to her. And it didn't set well with me because one of her fights she had was against none other than ever so lovely, beautiful, salt of the earth, Roxanne Modafferi.
Your favorite women's fighter ever.
I love Roxy. I love the camp that she's from. I love Josh Barnett, but I love Roxanne. She's the Mikey Musumeci of female MMA, in my opinion. Yep. Just a nerd who loves to do what she's doing. She just happened to be a little bit older at the time and wasn't able. Like if Roxanne was at her young age in
Oh, sure.
MMA now, she'd be murdering it.
Yeah,
Just killing
that last
it.
fight
Quote
that
it.
she had, her retirement fight, man,
Love
it's very hard to feel that good at the end of watching two people try and kill each other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everybody in that arena just felt warm. You were
And
so
nobody
happy
has a
for her.
bad thing to say about Roxy,
No.
right? But that fight that Macy Barber had with her, it was because Roxy ended up winning that fight. She wasn't supposed to. She was like a plus 37 million, right, to win that one. But she won it. And then Macy Barber tried to say it was because of an injury, because she blew her knee out. And yeah, she did blow her knee out in the fight. But don't take away somebody's steam like that, especially not my Roxy. You go out there and you say, you know what? I'd like to get that rematch. Yeah, I injured myself. Congratulations to you. Let's run it back. And you do it that way.
Here's the deal. If you go into a fight with an injury and
Mhm.
it gets aggravated in the fight, that's
Mhm.
one thing. But to get
Right.
an injury in a fight, that's what Roxanne's trying to do. Whether you did it to yourself or you didn't, that's what happens. So technically, your excuse
Yeah.
is fucking bullshit.
So she got completely salty about it. And I was like, go fucking F yourself, lady.
Yeah.
Right. But you can't deny the talent. Macy Barber has been stringing together. I mean, the only people that she's lost to is Roxanne and Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso is a former champion, right? Macy's on a 6-fight win streak right now, and she's never been finished. Even that fight with Roxy where she blew her knee out, went the distance, never finished. So Macy's on that list as well. I think you're going to see a lot of great things from her. 2 more names here I got for you. And we're going to go with one more, okay, before we get to the main event of this one.
I got a good idea of what the main's going to be.
So the next name I'm going to give you is Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez, okay, kind of been held back a little bit because of injuries, right? And she was supposed to have another fight that didn't appear, but it looks like 2025 she's going to be back. And this is a girl who just ragdolls people, just wrestle ragdolls people like to no end. She's got wins over Alexa Grasso, Carla Esparza, Nina Ansaroff, Montana De La Rosa, and Jessica Andrade. Unbelievable talent.
That's a who's who of talent.
It is unbelievable. It's amazing. 2025 is going to be a hell of a year for Tatiana Suarez if she can stay healthy. And all of these women that I've mentioned to you here all have another factor, Bradie.
What's that?
It's that simp factor. They're
Oh.
good-looking young girls that people are going to be like, what? There's no way. I got to check this. Oh, she's hot too.
The
Right?
number one simped girl in MMA, I think probably outside of Ronda Rousey ever, is Mackenzie Dern.
Well, I mean, Mackenzie Dern is doing
Maybe Paige
all of
Van
the right
Zandt.
things.
Paige Van
Is
Zandt
doing
would
yeah.
be in
Well,
there as
Paige,
well.
I don't think Paige got simped out to until after she left,
After.
right? But side note, she's coming back to the world of MMA. That's right. She signed a deal with the GFL, ladies and gentlemen, because she thought that getting into slap fight was going to get her back into the UFC. But guess what? It didn't.
Go
It
check out our
didn't.
last episode if you want to know our feelings on that whole brand being launched. My goodness. Well,
Now-
okay, so we've got one more name. I'm pretty sure anybody watching that isn't just a casual MMA fan has a pretty good idea, like I do, of the name you're about to drop. And before you do, the second you hear this name, guys, and you're done with this show, and you've never heard that name before, we just said it, go watch highlights. Please do yourself a favor.
Let me ask you a question, Bradie.
Okay.
Have you ever you've watched a lot of mixed martial arts?
Some say too much.
Have you ever even seen a male fighter or female fighter, doesn't matter, who has the ability to finish somebody over and over again with a body shot? Can you think
There's
of
been a
anybody?
few. Boss Rutan.
Giga Chikadze with that
Giga,
Giga kick,
yeah.
that liver kick that he throws. He's a lot of people, right?
Yep.
Now name me a woman
Oh, stop.
outside of knockouts with, like, you know what I mean?
Just
Because
I
that-
don't have one. Well, I've
there's
got
not.
one
until right now.
until
Until right now, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have not checked out the PFL which a lot of people haven't, I can tell you that right now. Do yourself a favor, do a little bit of research and look up this name I'm about to tell you right now. Some of you have already have it in your head, I'm sure, but this is unbelievable. And I'm talking about a 26-year-old, 125-pound phenom who's just starching women named Dakota Ditcheva. Dakota Ditcheva is the greatest stand-up fighter in all of women's MMA. Yeah, I said it. All of women's MMA. And that's a huge thing to say because she's only got 14 fights. Guess how many of those that she's lost, Bradie?
0.
That's right. Out of those 14 fights, guess how many of those fights are TKOs or KOs?
13.
12 of them.
I
Close.
was off by 1.
You were looking into the future, into the crystal ball and saying, hey, this is what's going to happen again. Because out of those 12, over 80% of those wins are from body shots. Shots to the liver that just shut you down. And listen, I hate to say this because I feel like I'm taking something away from it. But for a young female martial artist to be able to be that consistent, stand in the pocket and saying, I know the exact spot. It's not your chin. It's not that spot behind your ear. It's that liver. It's that body shot. And I'm going to put you out with that every single stinking time.
She is an anomaly. When she throws teep kicks and front face kicks, then they look like they're quicker than jabs. Something's up. In terms of a fighter, watching a fighter starting their career and being this good, I'm getting Hamzat vibes from her.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, if you put her in the UFC and she runs through 3 or 4 decent names like this, who the fuck do you even put her up against at that point?
You know who I get vibes? I get Anderson Silva vibes.
Very much so, yes.
From her because she's a stand-up technician, right?
Yeah.
Israel Adesanya. She's got that kickboxer style, right? But she also knows how to work her length. You talk about those front kicks with those legs. I mean, the girl is like, 5'9", 5'10", something like that.
Yeah.
With 12-foot long legs. That's the problem. Like she throws those things out there like she's Dhalsim. Street Fighter shout out. There we go.
Yoga Flame.
Keep an eye on that name, ladies and gentlemen, because Dakota Ditcheva is going to be an absolute star.
Yeah, and she's going to be a model. She looks like a model out there too, fighting, where you're like, oh my God, she's going to get that simp crowd as well.
Yeah.
They're throwing it back to the Simps from the beginning of the show. You have a simp MMA girl.
Yeah.
Let's start making some shorts.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm all for it. PFL better never let her go.
Well,
right?
Chris, I think we've done another justice to wrestling and combat sports radio by getting through another episode of What's at Work Radio, the Law Live Audio Wrestling with Chris Tidwell and little Bradie Whetham. We were salty at the beginning, but you know what? I've calmed down.
Have you?
Can you say something to bring my energy back up?
Well, listen, at the end of the day, Bradie, I think that what you've got to do is you got to make sure that you go out there, you keep your eyes focused, you keep that fist right up in here, right alongside of those ears, and you fight. You know why? Because if anything I've learned this past week in the world that I live in is being a fighter is a completely different thing when you're about to lose your job. You know what he didn't do, ladies and gentlemen? The one thing you're supposed to do. Subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, share this with your friends. Thank you so much. And remember, tuck your chin. Peace.
Subscribe now for more content and combat sports discussions.
This is the law. This is the law.